Chaos erupts, explosions, sirens, lives shattered in an instant. Nations are torn apart, skylines collapse, hope vanishes. The cost, unimaginable. Cities reduced to rubble, lives forever changed. The countdown begins now. Brace yourself for the first event, a shock that rocked the world. September 11, 2001 began as an ordinary Tuesday in the United States. In New York City, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center stood tall until 8:46 a.m., when American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower. 17 minutes later, United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower. The world realized this was no accident. In Washington, D.C., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, and United Airlines Flight 93, thanks to the bravery of its passengers, crashed in Pennsylvania before reaching its target. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed, followed by the North Tower less than 30 minutes later. Manhattan's skyline was forever changed. Ground Zero became a symbol of loss. Nearly 3,000 people from over 90 countries died: office workers, first responders, and ordinary citizens. The attacks shattered a global sense of security and ushered in a new era. The War on Terror was declared, leading to prolonged conflicts. The aftershocks of that day still shape our world, reminding us that an attack on one can be felt by all. The heroism of Flight 93's passengers stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The September 11th attacks were a turning point for the entire world. The images of that day remain etched in our collective memory, a stark reminder of the cost of hatred and extremism. In the aftermath, the world united in grief, but also in resolve. The legacy of 9/11 is complex, marked by both acts of compassion and the consequences of war. It is a day that changed the course of history, and its lessons continue to resonate. We remember the lives lost, the bravery shown, and the world forever altered. The echoes of that day remind us to remain vigilant and to strive for a more peaceful future. In 1945, World War II raged on in the Pacific. A new power, atomic energy, was unleashed with devastating effect. On August 6th, the Enola Gay dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima. In seconds, a city was vaporized. Over 140,000 would die. Survivors faced radiation sickness, a new horror for humanity. 3 days later, Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki, killing another 74,000. The bombings forced Japan's surrender, ending World War II, but at a cost that would haunt the world. The nuclear age had begun. Humanity now possessed the means of its own annihilation. The mushroom cloud became a symbol of both ultimate power and ultimate fear. The world held its breath as superpowers raced to build even deadlier arsenals. The moral questions remain: was it justified to end the war, or was it an unforgivable act against civilians? The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is a warning of our capacity for destruction and the responsibility that comes with such power. These events reshaped international relations and the global balance of power. The survivors, known as hibakusha, became living reminders of the horrors of nuclear war. Their stories urge us to remember the human cost behind technological achievement. The bombings left scars that endure to this day, both in Japan and across the world. They serve as a somber reminder of the choices we make in war. The world must never forget the lessons of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The shadow of the atomic bomb still looms over humanity. In 2003, the world watched as the United States and its allies launched Operation Iraqi Freedom, the justification weapons of mass destruction and alleged ties to terrorism. Baghdad was bombarded in a campaign of shock and awe. The regime of Saddam Hussein fell within weeks, but the swift victory gave way to chaos. The disbanding of the Iraqi army and government created a power vacuum, fueling insurgency and sectarian violence. Car bombings, kidnappings, and brutal urban warfare became daily realities. The war's justification, WMDs, was never proven. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died, and the region was destabilized. The rise of ISIS traced directly to the chaos unleashed by the invasion. The war remains one of the most controversial actions of the modern era. It is a lesson in the law of unintended consequences and the dangers of imposing order from the outside. The invasion's aftershocks continue to shape the Middle East and global politics. The cost in lives, stability, and trust is incalculable. The story of Iraq is a warning about the limits of military power. It is a conflict whose lessons must not be forgotten. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Explosions echoed across Kiev, Kharkiv, and Odessa as Russian forces advanced from multiple directions. The world expected a swift Russian victory, but Ukraine's resistance stunned everyone. President Zelensky's defiance inspired a nation ordinary citizens took up arms. The war became a grinding conflict marked by urban sieges and atrocities. Cities like Mariupol were reduced to ruins. Evidence of war crimes emerged from towns like Bucha. Millions fled, creating a massive refugee crisis. The conflict is fought with modern technology and on social media as much as with tanks and artillery. The international response sanctions on Russia military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. The war has reshaped alliances and triggered global crises, including energy shortages. As the conflict rages, the human cost mounts daily. Ukraine's struggle is a testament to the will to survive and the fragility of peace. The war is a living tragedy, a warning that large-scale conflict is not a relic of the past. Its outcome will shape the future of Europe and the world. In 2011, pro-democracy protests in Syria were met with brutal repression, igniting a civil war. The conflict spiraled into a multi-sided catastrophe with global and regional powers backing rival factions. Iran and Russia supported Assad, Western nations and others backed the opposition. Into this chaos emerged ISIS, imposing terror and carving out territory. Chemical weapons and barrel bombs devastated cities and civilians. Aleppo and other ancient cities became symbols of destruction. The war's human cost is staggering. Hundreds of thousands dead, millions displaced. Over half of Syria's population was forced from their homes. Refugees fled to neighboring countries and beyond, creating a humanitarian crisis. The war shattered Syria's social fabric and future. The conflict is a harrowing example of how hope can be twisted into catastrophe. External powers and extremist ideologies fueled the devastation. Syria remains fractured and haunted by loss. The war's legacy is a generation lost to violence and uncertainty. It is a profound tragedy, a warning of the dangers of unchecked power and indifference. The world must not look away from Syria's suffering. The Holocaust stands as history's most chilling example of systematic, state-sponsored genocide. 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, were murdered by the Nazi regime. It began with propaganda and laws that dehumanized, then escalated to ghettos, forced labor, and finally, extermination camps. Auschwitz, Treblinka, and others became factories of death. Victims were transported in cattle cars, selected for labor or sent directly to gas chambers. The scale of murder was industrial, the cruelty unimaginable. The Holocaust annihilated a culture and a people, leaving a void in Europe and the world. When the camps were liberated, the world was forced to confront the depths of human evil. The Holocaust led to the creation of the term genocide and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is a warning of where hatred and indifference can lead. The memory of the Holocaust is a sacred duty, never to forget. Its lessons are as urgent today as ever. We must remember to prevent such horrors from recurring. The Holocaust is a testament to the consequences of unchecked hatred. It is a call to defend our shared humanity. In 1994, Rwanda became the scene of one of history's fastest and most brutal genocides. In just 100 days, 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were slaughtered by extremist militias. The roots lay in colonial divisions and decades of tension. The assassination of the Hutu president triggered a pre-planned campaign of extermination. Neighbors turned on neighbors, machetes became the weapon of genocide. Radio broadcasts incited and directed the killers. Churches and schools, once sanctuaries, became sites of massacre. The world watched, but failed to intervene. A small UN force was powerless to stop the killing. The genocide ended only when the Rwandan Patriotic Front seized control. Rwanda was left devastated, haunted by trauma and loss. The genocide is a stark reminder of how quickly society can collapse into barbarism. It is an indictment of international indifference. The lesson: evil triumphs when good people do nothing. We must never allow such horror to happen again. In 1947, the British partitioned India along religious lines, creating India and Pakistan. The borders were hastily drawn, splitting provinces, villages, and families. The result was chaos. Law and order collapsed and sectarian violence erupted. Trains carrying refugees were ambushed, entire communities were massacred. 15 million people were uprooted in the largest migration in history. The journey was perilous. Many died from violence, exhaustion, or disease. Families were torn apart, and centuries-old coexistence was shattered. Estimates of the dead range from several 100,000 to 2 million. The legacy is deep. India and Pakistan remain locked in hostility, with Kashmir a flashpoint. The scars of partition are etched into the psyche of both nations. It was a political decision that became a humanitarian catastrophe. The event stands as a warning about the dangers of dividing people along religious lines. The wounds of 1947 have yet to fully heal. Partition was not a conventional attack, but a violent upheaval inflicted on millions. Its lessons remain urgent for our divided world. Yemen, with its ancient history, has become the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Since 2014, Houthi rebels seized the capital, prompting a Saudi-led intervention. What was meant to be swift became a brutal, protracted proxy war. Airstrikes have devastated civilian infrastructure, hospitals, schools, markets. The Houthis have also committed abuses, including sieges and the use of child soldiers. The war's indirect effects are catastrophic: famine, disease, and economic collapse. Millions face starvation. Children suffer from malnutrition. The healthcare system has collapsed, leading to the world's worst cholera outbreak. The COVID-19 pandemic added to the misery. Most deaths are from hunger and disease, not direct combat. The death toll nears 400,000, with civilians paying the highest price. Yemen's war is a failure of international responsibility. It is a silent apocalypse demanding the world's attention. The suffering in Yemen must not be forgotten. The Vietnam War spanned 2 decades, tearing apart Southeast Asia and leaving deep scars. What began as a struggle for independence became a Cold War battleground. The U.S. escalated its involvement, deploying over 500,000 troops. The war was fought in jungles and villages with no clear front lines. Search and destroy missions blurred the line between combatant and civilian. Chemical warfare, including Agent Orange, devastated the land and poisoned generations. The U.S. dropped more bombs on Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia than in all of World War II. Millions of unexploded bombs still threaten lives today. Civilian casualties were immense. Up to 2 million Vietnamese died. The war destabilized the region, paving the way for the Khmer Rouge genocide. Over 58,000 Americans also lost their lives. The Vietnam War showed the limits of military power and the cost of ideological conflict. Its legacy is one of trauma, environmental destruction, and lessons still unlearned. The war's consequences echo across generations. We have journeyed through some of the darkest chapters of human history. Each event is a wound on humanity, a lesson written in blood. To look away is to risk repeating these horrors. By remembering, we honor the victims and arm ourselves against future tragedies. Let this be a call to conscience, a reminder that our choices shape the future. Let us choose empathy, dialogue, and peace. We must remember, so that we may never endure such devastation again.